The small house stood at the edge of the dark village, quiet as if the night itself was holding its breath. Inside, a young man sat beside a bed where his mother lay still. Her breathing was slow, weak, and broken. Every rise of her chest felt like it might be the last. The oil lamp on the table flickered, casting long shadows on the walls, and the air smelled of sickness and damp wood. He had done everything he could. He sold the little land they had. He begged for medicine. But the doctor had shaken his head that evening and said, "She will not survive the night. I am sorry." Those words kept echoing in his mind, louder than the sound of the crickets outside. He held his mother's thin hand, whispering promises that she would not die alone. Yet inside, his heart was breaking. The clock on the wall ticked slowly, each sound a reminder that time was running out. Midnight drew closer and the silence grew heavier. The young man thought of his childhood, of the way his mother had worked all her life to keep him fed, clothed, and alive. And now he could do nothing but watch her fade away. He closed his eyes, trying not to cry. And then, there was a knock. It was soft, almost gentle, but in the dead of night it sounded louder than thunder. The young man froze. Who could be knocking at this hour? No neighbor would come so late. He slowly stood, heart pounding. The knock came again, steady, as if whoever stood outside knew he was hesitating. He walked to the door, every step heavy with fear and curiosity. His hand trembled as he reached for the handle. He opened it just a crack, expecting maybe a neighbor with news or a stranger lost in the night. But what he saw made his breath catch. There, standing in the rain, was a little girl. She was no older than 8, with hair that shimmered faintly in the moonlight. Her eyes were large and glowing, like tiny stars trapped in her face. Her skin had a pale silver tone, not like any human he had ever seen. She wore a torn cloak that clung to her small frame, and she was barefoot, her feet muddy from the road. The young man's first thought was that she could not be real. She looked too strange, too fragile, as if she belonged to a dream. But she raised her head and spoke in a soft, clear voice that made his heart beat faster. "I can help her," the little girl said, pointing toward the room where his mother lay. For a moment he could not speak. His throat felt dry. What did you say?" he asked. "I can help your mother," the girl repeated. Her eyes never blinked, and her voice carried a strange calmness, like she was certain of her words. The man shook his head. "Who are you? How do you even know she is sick?" The girl looked at him with eyes too old for her small body. "I know because I felt her pain. I heard her cries. I came because time is running out." The man stepped back, fear crawling over him. She was not human. He could see that clearly now, and yet she was just a child, a small, shivering child standing in the rain in the middle of the night. His mind screamed that something was wrong, that nothing about this was natural. But another part of him whispered, what if she was telling the truth? What if she really could help? He thought of his mother lying pale and weak, breath slipping away. If there was even a small chance, could he risk refusing? "Why would you help us?" he asked slowly. "You don't even know us." The girl tilted her head. Rain dripped from her hair, but she didn't move to wipe it away. "Because no one else will. But it will cost you." Her words were simple, but the weight behind them was heavy. "Cost him what? Money? Something else?" His chest tightened as he stared at her, unable to decide. She took one small step forward, her glowing eyes looking past him toward the bed where his mother lay. "Let me in," she whispered. Before it is too late, the young man stood in the doorway, torn between fear and hope. Every instinct told him to slam the door, to protect himself and his home. But then he heard his mother cough weakly, the sound sharp and painful, like death itself was standing in the room waiting. His hand tightened on the door. He looked at the girl again. Her eyes glowed brighter, and for a heartbeat he thought he saw kindness hidden deep within them. He stepped aside. "Come in," he said softly. The little alien girl entered the house, the rain dripping from her cloak onto the wooden floor. She walked straight toward the sick woman's bed without hesitation, as if she had been there before. The young man followed her, fear and hope battling inside him with every step. The night had been filled with silence, despair, and the shadow of death. But with that knock at midnight, everything had changed, and the young man had no idea that this was only the beginning. The little alien girl stood at the side of the sick woman's bed, her glowing eyes fixed on the frail figure. The young man stayed close, his chest tight with fear and hope. He didn't know what this strange child planned to do, but he could not look away. The silence in the room grew heavier, broken only by the shallow breaths of his mother. The girl placed her small hand gently on the woman's forehead. For a moment, nothing happened. The young man almost spoke, almost demanded answers, but then he saw it. A faint light, soft and silver, spread from the girl's palm. It traveled across his mother's face like moonlight sliding over water. Her breathing, once broken and weak, slowly grew steadier. Her chest rose higher with each breath, as if life was returning to her. The man's mouth fell open. His heart raced. He leaned closer, afraid to believe what his eyes were showing him. His mother's pale cheeks gained a touch of color, and her lips no longer trembled with every breath. Tears burned his eyes. What are you doing to her?" he whispered. The girl's voice was calm, almost cold. "I am giving her what she has lost. But only a little. Enough for tonight." As she pulled back her hand, something appeared in her other palm. A small crystal orb glowing faintly, almost alive. The light inside it pulsed like a heartbeat, soft but steady. She placed it on the bedside table beside the lamp, and immediately the air in the room felt warmer, lighter. "What is that?" the man asked, staring at the orb. "It is a gift," the girl said. "As long as it stays near her, she will keep breathing. But the sickness inside her is deep. This will not cure her, only hold the darkness back." He shook his head, confusion and fear mixing in his mind. "Why are you doing this? Who are you really?" The girl turned her glowing eyes on him, and for the first time he saw a shadow of sadness in them. "Who I am does not matter. What matters is that your mother is safe, for now." The words filled him with both relief and dread. His mother lived, but for how long? And what did "for now" mean? He wanted to press her for answers, but the girl stepped back, her cloak dripping water onto the wooden floor. "You must protect the orb," she said firmly. "Do not let anyone take it. Others will come for it. Others will come for me." His stomach dropped. "Others? What others?" The girl's voice lowered, almost a whisper. "My people." He felt his blood run cold. "Your people? Why would they come here? Why would they care about my mother?" "They don't care about your mother," she said with quiet bitterness. "They care about me. And what I carry." She glanced at the orb. "This gift is forbidden. They will not let a human keep it. If they find it here, they will take it, and they will punish anyone who tried to use it." The man clenched his fists. "So you're telling me my mother is alive only because of something they want to destroy?" The girl nodded. He looked at his mother, sleeping peacefully now for the first time in weeks. His heart twisted. Relief battled with fear inside him. The thought of losing her again, of seeing her slip back into death's shadow, was unbearable. "You can't leave us like this," he said, his voice breaking. "Please tell me how to save her. Tell me what I have to do." The little alien girl's expression softened just a little. "You already know," she whispered. "You must fight for her. You must fight for the gift." Her words struck him like a blade. Fight? Against who? Against what? He was just a poor man with nothing but his hands. How could he stand against whatever beings were hunting this child? Before he could ask, the girl stepped back toward the door. Her small frame looked even smaller in the flickering lamplight. She pulled her hood over her head, and for a moment her glowing eyes were hidden. "I cannot stay," she said. "If they find me here, they will hurt you. They will hurt her. I will return when I can. But remember, protect the orb, protect her. Do not trust anyone who asks about me." The man's voice rose in desperation. "Wait, you can't just leave. What am I supposed to do?" The girl stopped at the doorway. She turned her head just enough that he could see the faint glow of her eyes beneath the hood. "Believe," she said softly, "and be ready." Then she was gone, stepping into the night rain without another word. The young man stood frozen, staring at the empty doorway. His heart was pounding so hard it hurt. He shut the door quickly, fear that someone might see the glow of the orb burning in his chest. He turned to his mother again. She was still breathing calmly, her face peaceful as if she were only sleeping. He knelt beside her, clutching her hand, tears streaming down his face. Relief filled him, but dread clawed at the edges of his mind. He looked at the orb. Its soft glow pulsed gently like it was alive. It filled the room with warmth and hope, but also with a warning. She said others would come. She said they would take it. He whispered to himself, voice trembling, "I'll protect you, Mother, whatever it takes." But deep inside, he knew the night's knock had changed everything. His life was no longer his own, and the danger that had just stepped into his home was only beginning. Morning came, but it did not bring peace. The small house was quiet, filled with the steady breath of the young man's mother and the faint glow of the orb on the table. For the first time in weeks, she slept without coughing, her face calm as if she were only resting. The young man sat in a chair beside her, staring at the orb with heavy eyes. He had not slept at all. His thoughts circled endlessly, about the strange little girl, about her warning, about the promise he had whispered to protect his mother. He wanted to believe the nightmare was over, that his mother was safe now, but deep down he knew it was only the beginning, and he was right. By midday, the village began to stir with whispers. People spoke of strangers moving through the streets, tall figures in dark cloaks, asking questions in voices that carried no warmth. Farmers who had been working the fields said they saw something strange at dawn, a ship, silver and sharp, cutting across the clouds before vanishing behind the hills. The young man's stomach twisted when he heard the rumors. He kept to himself, avoiding the neighbors' curious glances. He hurried back to the house, bolting the door behind him. His mother still slept peacefully, but the orb's glow seemed sharper now, almost as if it sensed danger. Then came the first knock. This one was not soft. It was heavy, slow, and deliberate. The sound made the walls tremble. The young man froze in place, his hand tightening on the chair. Whoever was at the door was not a neighbor. Another knock followed, louder, demanding. The young man's pulse raced. He remembered the alien girl's words, "Do not trust anyone who asks about me." He moved quietly to the window and peered through the crack in the curtain. Outside stood two tall figures, far taller than any man he had ever seen. They wore black armor that shimmered faintly in the sunlight, and their helmets covered their faces. Strange symbols glowed faintly on their chests like marks of authority. One of them turned his head, and even from behind the glass, the young man felt the weight of their gaze. His breath caught. These were not travelers. They were hunters. He stepped back quickly, his heart hammering. His mother stirred slightly at the sound of the knocking, but did not wake. The orb pulsed faster, as if warning him. "Open the door," a voice called out. It was low and sharp, carrying across the walls like a blade cutting through air. "We know she came here." The young man's blood turned to ice. They were searching for the girl. He pressed his back against the wall, silent, praying they would leave. But the knocking grew louder, harder, shaking the wood of the door. "Do not make us wait," the second voice growled. "We will search every house. If you hide her, you will suffer with her." The young man's hands shook. He wanted to scream, to tell them they were wrong, that he knew nothing. But deep inside he understood they would not believe him. They were not looking for truth. They were looking for obedience, and if they stepped inside, they would find the orb. He ran to the table and grabbed it, feeling its warmth pulse against his skin. He tucked it under his coat, close to his chest where its glow could not be seen. His eyes darted to the back door. Another thunderous knock shook the house. "Last chance," the voice said, colder than before. The young man did not think anymore. He moved quickly, lifting his mother as gently as he could. She was weak but light, and though his arms trembled, he carried her to the cellar door. He laid her down carefully inside the hidden space beneath the floor, covering her with blankets. She did not stir, only breathed steadily as if unaware of the danger above. He whispered, "Stay safe, mother, please," before closing the cellar hatch. The knocking stopped. Silence filled the house for one long, terrifying moment. Then came the sound of footsteps, heavy and sharp, moving away from the front door. The young man dared to breathe again, but only for a moment. Because he heard the next sound. Doors opening, voices calling out, neighbors answering in frightened tones. The strangers were moving through the village, searching every home one by one. Panic clawed at his chest. It was only a matter of time before they returned. He pressed his back to the wall, clutching the orb under his coat. His mind screamed at him to run, but his legs felt heavy. If he left, where would he go? If he stayed, they would find him. Then from the cellar, he thought he heard a voice. Soft, faint, but real. His mother whispering in her sleep, "Run." Tears stung his eyes. She was right. He had no choice. He looked one last time around the small house that had been his whole world. Then he slipped out the back door, the orb glowing against his chest, and ran into the forest beyond the fields. Behind him, the armored figures turned their heads. They had seen movement. The chase had begun. The forest was dark and endless. filled with the sound of branches snapping under hurried footsteps. The young man ran without looking back, clutching the orb tightly against his chest. His lungs burned, his legs screamed with pain, but fear kept him moving. Behind him, faint echoes of armored footsteps and strange metallic sounds followed. The hunters had seen him. They would not stop. At last, when the trees grew thicker and the shadows deeper, he stumbled into a small clearing and collapsed against a fallen log. His chest rose and fell rapidly, sweat dripping from his face. He pressed the orb close, its faint glow hidden beneath his coat. For a moment, he thought he had lost them. Silence wrapped around him, broken only by the cries of night birds. Then he heard it, a soft rustle, lighter than the sound of the hunters. He spun around, heart racing, ready to defend himself. From the shadows stepped the small figure he had almost forgotten in his panic. The little alien girl. Her cloak was still torn, her glowing eyes dimmer now but unmistakable. She moved slowly, almost cautiously, as if she expected him to push her away. "You," his voice cracked with both relief and anger. "Do you have any idea what's happening?" "They came to my house. They're searching for you." The girl lowered her head. "I told you others would come. They always do." The young man clenched his fists. "You should have never knocked on my door. My mother, she's still inside. If they find her." His voice broke and he pressed a hand to his face, fighting tears. The girl stepped closer, her voice calm, though her eyes shimmered with something softer. "She will live. You gave her the orb. That was the only way. Without it, she would already be gone." His breath caught. He looked down at the faint light hidden under his coat. "What is this thing?" he demanded. "Why is it so important that they would tear apart a whole village to find it? What did you bring into my home?" For the first time, the girl seemed hesitant. She looked away, her small hands clutching the edges of her cloak. "It is life," she whispered. He stared at her, confused. "Life?" She nodded slowly. "Inside this orb is a piece of what my people guard, the essence of living things. It can heal, it can restore. It is powerful. Too powerful." She raised her eyes to meet his. "That is why they forbid us from sharing it with anyone. Especially with humans." The words sank deep into him. A piece of life itself. A forbidden gift. His mother's steady breaths, her calm face, all because of this glowing crystal now beating like a heart against his chest. His hands trembled. "Why me? Why my mother?"
"Why did you choose us?"
The little alien girl closed her eyes for a moment, as if the weight of his question was too much for her small body. When she opened them again, they glowed faintly with sadness. "Because I could not watch her die. I heard her pain. I felt her fading. My people would have done nothing. They would have let her go. But I could not." Her voice shook now, breaking through the calm mask she had carried before. "I ran away. I stole the orb. And I gave it to you." The young man's breath quickened. He understood now why the armored hunters were here. Not just to take the orb, but to take her. She was a traitor to her own people. "They will kill you," he said quietly. "If they find you, they will not show mercy." The girl looked away. "I know." Silence stretched between them. The forest seemed to listen, every leaf and branch holding its breath. At last the man spoke, his voice low but firm. "Then why not run farther? Why not leave this place, this world? Why come to me?" The girl's glowing eyes softened. "Because you are different," he frowned. "Different? You cared. Even when you were afraid, you let me in." "No one else would have opened the door." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "And now, because of that choice, your mother still breathes." The young man's chest tightened. He wanted to deny her words, to push her away and blame her for the danger he was now in. But deep down, he knew she was right. He had opened the door. He had chosen to let her in. And now nothing could ever be the same. From the distance came a faint metallic sound. The hunters moving again, closer this time. The girl's head snapped toward the noise, her eyes flashing. "They are not far," she said. "We cannot stay here." He looked at her, then at the orb glowing faintly under his coat. His whole body ached with fear, but he remembered his mother's whispered word in the cellar. "Run." He clenched his jaw. "Then tell me what to do. Tell me how to protect her. How to protect this gift." The girl stepped closer, her small hand reaching out, her glowing eyes burning with quiet determination. "Stand with me," she whispered. "Because if you don't, you will lose her, and they will take everything." The man looked into her eyes and, for the first time, saw not just a child, but a fighter, carrying a secret that could change everything. And in that moment, as the sound of armored footsteps drew nearer, he made his choice. He would not run. He would not hide. He would fight. The night was cold, and the forest air pressed heavy against the young man's lungs as he and the little alien girl moved deeper into the shadows. The orb glowed faintly under his coat, pulsing against his chest like a heartbeat. Every step he took reminded him of what was at stake, his mother's fragile life now tied to this forbidden gift. But even as he tried to focus on keeping the orb safe, doubt gnawed at him. How long could this strange crystal keep his mother alive, and what would happen when the hunters caught them? The girl walked silently beside him, her cloak dragging through the damp leaves. Her glowing eyes scanned the darkness, alert, listening for every sound. At last she broke the silence. "You must understand," she said softly. "The orb is not endless. It gives what it holds, but when it is empty, there is nothing left. Each breath your mother takes now, it comes from its light." The word struck him hard. He stopped walking, turning to her with wide eyes. "You mean she's alive because the orb is feeding her? Because it's giving her its life?" The girl nodded. "Yes, but that life must come from somewhere. It was taken, piece by piece, from those who could afford to give it." Her voice shook. "From my people. From me." The young man felt his chest tighten. He looked at the orb, glowing faintly under his coat, and then at the girl's small, pale face. She seemed weaker now, her steps slower, her voice softer. He realized the truth. She was paying the price even as she saved his mother. His throat went dry. "How much will it take from you?" The girl looked away. "Enough." Before he could press her, the silence of the forest broke. A loud metallic crack echoed through the trees, followed by voices, low, commanding, inhuman. The hunters were near. The young man's heart raced. He grabbed the girl's hand, pulling her toward a cluster of rocks for cover. They crouched low as shadows moved across the trees, black armor gleaming faintly under the moonlight. "Spread out," one of the hunters ordered. "The traitor is close. The orb calls to us." The man held his breath, clutching the orb tighter. The faint pulse of light seemed stronger now, as if reacting to their presence. He prayed they would not see it. The girl leaned close to his ear. Her whisper was urgent. "They can feel it. They will never stop. If they take it, your mother dies. If they take me, I die." The young man's mind spun. He was trapped. Protecting the orb meant keeping his mother alive, but it also meant putting the girl in constant danger. And the hunters, they wanted both. Suddenly, one of the armored figures turned, his gaze fixed on the rocks where they hid. He raised a weapon, sharp and glowing with deadly energy. "Found them," he shouted. The young man's blood froze. The girl grabbed his arm, her glowing eyes fierce. "Choose now," she whispered. "Me or your mother. You cannot save both without paying the price." Her words shattered him. His whole body trembled. Could he betray the child who had given him hope? Could he abandon her to save his mother? His heart screamed against the choice. The hunters closed in, their weapons humming, their heavy steps shaking the ground. The young man stood, the orb clutched tight in his hand. He faced the armored figures, fear burning in his chest, but anger burning hotter. "You can't have it," he shouted, his voice raw. "She saved my mother. She saved me. I'll never give her to you." The hunters laughed, cold and sharp. "Foolish human," one sneered. "Do you think you can fight us? Hand her over and we will let you live. Refuse and you will lose everything." The man's grip tightened on the orb. He could feel its warmth, its life flowing into him, filling his trembling body with strength he did not know he had. For a moment the fear inside him vanished, replaced by a strange, burning determination. He lifted the orb high, and its glow burst through the trees, bright and blinding. The hunters stumbled back, shielding their faces from the sudden light. The girl gasped, staring at him. "Be careful. The orb answers your heart. Too much, and it will burn you from inside." But the man did not stop. He stepped forward, the light growing stronger with every breath. His voice carried through the night, filled with pain and defiance. "My mother lives because of this gift. You call it forbidden, but I call it hope. And I will fight to protect it, even if it kills me." The hunters roared in anger, charging toward him. The orb flared brighter, the ground trembling beneath their feet. The girl screamed his name, her voice breaking with fear and awe. And in that moment, the young man understood the truth. The orb was not only his mother's lifeline, it was a weapon. But using it came with a cost, a price written in pain and sacrifice. As the light burst outward, knocking the hunters back into the trees, He knew that price was his to bear. The forest shook with the sound of armored footsteps, the hunters moving in with deadly speed. The young man stood with the orb clutched in his hands, its blinding light still fading from the last burst. His chest heaved with exhaustion, but his eyes burned with defiance. The girl pulled at his arm. "We must run," she cried, her glowing eyes wide with fear. But the young man shook his head. "No more running. If we don't stop them here, they'll find my mother. They'll take everything." The hunters spread out, their weapons glowing with sharp humming energy. One of them raised his arm, and the weapon unleashed a beam that sliced through the trees, leaving smoking stumps behind. The young man barely pulled the girl aside in time. The blast scorched the earth where they had been standing. "You cannot win," one of the hunters growled, his voice echoing through his helmet. "The orb belongs to us. The traitor will be punished and you will be erased." The man tightened his grip on the orb. Its warmth pulsed against his skin, stronger now, almost alive. He felt energy flowing through him, filling his veins like fire. For the first time in his life, he did not feel weak. He felt powerful. He raised the orb and light poured from it, forming a shield around him and the girl. The next blast from the hunters struck the shield, sparking against it before vanishing into nothing. The hunters snarled, circling them like wolves. The girl's small voice trembled. "You can't hold it for long. The orb takes from the one who wields it. If you keep pushing, it will drain you." But the young man only smiled grimly. "If it saves her, if it saves you, it's worth it." The hunters charged. The ground shook under their armored boots. The man thrust the orb forward, and a wave of light exploded outward, knocking 2 of the hunters off their feet. But 3 more pushed in, weapons raised. One slashed with a glowing blade, and the young man barely dodged, the heat of the weapon burning across his arm. He swung the orb instinctively, and the light burst again, hurling the attacker into the trees. But each strike took more from him. His chest ached, his vision blurred, and sweat poured down his face. The orb pulsed harder, as if warning him that his body could not carry its power much longer. The girl stepped beside him, her small hand glowing as she raised it. Silver light poured from her palm, striking one of the hunters and forcing him back. Her face twisted with pain, but she did not stop. "You don't have to do this alone," she whispered. Together they stood, man and child, human and alien, holding against the storm of armored giants. But the hunters were relentless. One by one they pushed forward, breaking through the light, forcing the man to stumble back. His legs shook. His strength was fading fast. Then from the distance he heard something, faint, weak, but real. His mother's voice, she was calling his name. His heart twisted. He had hidden her in the cellar, but somehow she had found the strength to come. She stood at the edge of the clearing, pale and weak, but her eyes burned with the same fire that lived in him. "Mother!" he cried. She looked at him, at the girl, at the hunters closing in. Then she spoke, her voice thin but steady. "Give me the orb." He froze, shaking his head. "No, it will kill you." Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "I am already dying. Let me give what I have left. For you." The girl's eyes widened, glowing brighter. She is right. The orb does not only take, it can carry her sacrifice. With it, she can end this. Tears blurred the young man's vision. His heart screamed to refuse, but deep down he knew. His mother had been fighting for him all his life. And now she was ready to fight one last time. The hunters drew closer, weapons raised. Time was gone. With shaking hands, the young man placed the orb into his mother's palms. Her frail fingers closed around it, and suddenly the glow flared so bright the night itself seemed to vanish. The hunters roared, raising their weapons. But the light burst outward like a wave of fire, striking them all at once. Their armor cracked, their weapons shattered, and they were thrown back into the darkness of the forest, their screams echoing as the earth itself shook. The young man shielded his eyes, holding the girl close. When the light faded, silence fell. The hunters were gone. The clearing was empty but for the 3 of them. His mother stood tall for one last moment, the orb glowing in her hands. She turned to her son, her eyes soft and full of love. "My boy," she whispered, "live." Then the light faded and she fell. The orb rolled gently from her hands, dim but still alive. The young man caught her body, tears streaming down his face, his cries echoing through the forest. The girl knelt beside him, silent, her glowing eyes wet with grief. The hunters were defeated, but the price had been paid. The girl knelt beside him, silent, her glowing eyes wet with grief. The hunters were defeated, but the price had been paid. The forest was silent after the storm of light. Smoke drifted between the trees where the hunters had fallen. Broken pieces of armor lay scattered across the ground, glowing faintly before fading into nothing. The night air was heavy, but no more footsteps, no more weapons, no more voices chased them. It was over. The young man knelt in the clearing, holding his mother's still body in his arms. His tears fell onto her pale face and his chest shook with grief. She had been the center of his world, the reason he had fought, the reason he had endured every hardship, and now she was gone. Beside him, the little alien girl sat quietly, her glowing eyes lowered, her hands folded tightly together. She did not speak, but her silence was full of sorrow. She had seen sacrifice before, but not like this. The orb lay on the ground between them. Its glow was faint now, no longer a burning flame but a soft heartbeat of light. The young man reached for it, his fingers trembling. As he touched it, warmth spread through his skin, gentle and steady. He lifted it, staring at its glow, and in that moment he understood. The orb still lived, because his mother's life had become part of it. A sob broke from his throat, but it was mixed with awe. His mother's voice echoed in his memory. "Live." The girl touched his arm gently. "She has not gone completely," she whispered. "Her sacrifice is inside. The orb carries her now." He looked at the girl, his vision blurred by tears. "Then she gave everything for me." "For us," the girl nodded. "And because of her we are alive. Because of her they are gone." The young man pressed the orb to his chest. For the first time he felt not just grief but strength. His mother's spirit was with him inside this strange and powerful gift. And with that came a responsibility. He wiped his tears roughly and stood, though his legs trembled. The girl rose with him, her small form looking almost fragile beside the towering shadows of the forest. But her eyes glowed brighter now, filled with something more than sadness. Hope. "What happens now?" he asked, his voice quiet. The girl looked toward the dark horizon. "They will come again. Not tonight, maybe not tomorrow, but they will never stop. My people do not forgive betrayal, and now you hold what they fear most." Her words should have crushed him, but instead they filled him with determination. He looked at the orb again. "Then I will fight. Not just for my mother, for you, for anyone they would harm." The girl studied him carefully, then gave the faintest smile. "You sound like her." He swallowed hard, forcing back another wave of grief. "She would want me to protect you. She would want me to keep moving forward." The girl tilted her head, her glowing eyes softening. "Then we are not alone anymore." They stood in silence for a long moment, listening to the forest breathe again. The night felt different now, still dangerous but no longer hopeless. Something had changed. The young man lifted his mother's body gently and carried her to the edge of the clearing, where the moonlight touched the ground like silver. He laid her down carefully, covering her with his cloak. His voice shook as he whispered a final goodbye, but his heart was steady. When he rose again, the orb glowed faintly in his hand, its pulse strong and alive. He looked at the little alien girl who stood waiting, her cloak torn, her face weary but her eyes unbroken. "We'll go together," he said, "wherever this leads." She nodded once, her small hands curling into fists. Together. And so, with the hunters defeated and the weight of sacrifice heavy on their shoulders, they left the clearing. The young man carried the orb, carrying his mother's spirit with him. The girl walked at his side, no longer just a stranger, but something closer. Family, bound not by blood but by choice, by loss, and by the promise of hope. The path ahead was uncertain. More enemies would come. More battles would rise. But in the silence of the night, as they walked out of the forest toward the unknown, one truth echoed louder than fear. They were not alone. The orb glowed brighter, lighting their steps, and though grief still clung to him, the young man felt something new stirring in his heart, something he had thought was lost forever. Hope. And as the stars shimmered above, the little alien girl whispered into the night, almost too soft to hear, "This is only the beginning."